Inside this wedding house, in the forest outside the village, Fuad is about to consummate his marriage to his cousin, Aisha. It won't be easy for either of them, but for Aisha, it will be especially painful. She was circumcised when she was 10 years old, sewn up and left with a tiny hole for urine. Fuad has his manhood and his honor to consider, but he does not succeed tonight. The next night, the struggle will resume. He will take his knife from his waist and cut her flesh open. In the darkness, it's difficult for him to see, but while he takes her virginity, she is bleeding to death.
In 2013, UNICEF projected that 200 million girls around the globe survived and undertook female genital mutilation, or FGM for short. Most were cut around the age of 15, some even younger. Majority of the procedures take place in Somalia, Sudan, Mali, Guinea, Egypt, and Djibouti. According to the Population Reference Bureau, more than 500,000 women/girls in the U.S. are at risk or have already undergone FGM in the U.S. or abroad. Similarly, estimates of about 680,000 girls/women have been affected in Europe, yet few have been prosecuted. Evidence also reports that Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and India have taken part in FGM. These projections are proving that this is an issue that should not be taken lightly. Researchers at the United Nations Population Fund have concluded that in between 2015 and 2030, 60 million will be cut, where FGM is regularly practiced. Lower, but not much better. We can always improve. Women who experience this trauma can be faced with devastating repercussions. HIV, vaginal infections, extreme pain during sex, hemorrhaging during childbirth, inability to urinate, psychological repercussions, and in worst cases, even death. On March 31st, Zane Doe died at age 16 from a forced FGM procedure that took place in Ethiopia. Young girls and women feel a loss of trust and support from their caregivers and even suffer from anxiety and depression after going through FGM. Also, if women cannot perform sexually, it can result in divorce or other marital conflicts. Now you might be wondering, why does this procedure take place? Well, most nations do this as a religious or cultural coming-of-age ritual. Some even argue it's a way to control women's sexuality. And the task is carried out by elderly people, traditional health practitioners, male barbers, members of secret societies, herbalists, or even a female relative. They use special knives, scissors, scalpels, pieces of glass, or razor blades. Aesthetics and antiseptics are not generally used during this procedure unless it is carried out by a medical practitioner. After being cut, girls' legs are bound together to immobilize them for 10 to 14 days, allowing scar tissue to form.
We're just going for circumcision the next day, so everybody was preparing food and they're making big event. So I was in my uncle's house, so I had small booklets on how harmful circumcision is, and I sneaked up to his room and I gave him the books and I told him, don't do that. You know what happened? He came because his eldest daughter was circumcised. He came crying and he really asked his daughter to forgive him, and he refused for the other two to be circumcised the next day. The lashback I got from my mom, that how dare me to talk about these issues to men, But from that day, thank God they are now generations, they are mothers and they have their children, there's no circumcision took place.
And that was before all this life out there.
I'm sure he was so indifferent because it was a decision made by women, because that's how men actually put the burden on women on this kind of things.
It's important to say that women are helping to perpetuate these things by committing some of the acts, but at this point it's still a game of survival. When a woman is raising her daughter, she knows that there are consequences for not following a particular order.
When you ask the women, they tell you, but if they don't get circumcised, they will not get married. And that's so brilliant that men always sneak out of responsibilities and say, this is not what we said. The women are the ones who are doing this. Why do we think patriarchy is never? Yeah, because we women are the main maintainers to that system. They're always made to preserve the patriarchal societies.
But Pakistani woman said to me the other day, she said, when we are born, we are controlled by our father. Then we are controlled by our brothers. Then we are married, we are controlled by our husbands. And today she said, I'm controlled by my sons. And this is essentially power patriarchy control in a woman's life. And sometimes they are the ones who just give in to all the stereotypes, and they actually accept some of the abuse that's told out to them. I've had many women say, no, it's okay, I'm happy to be this way, I'm happy to be submissive, I'm happy that someone else tells me what to do.
Let these women be an example to all about the conversations that need to be had. The more we talk, the more we can bring the issue to light and educate people on the dangers of FGM. Words can have an extremely powerful impact, so that's why we have to refrain from referring to FGM as a female circumcision. You cannot compare the severity of FGM to a circumcision. FGM is 10 times more invasive, harmful, and disruptive. Also, FGM is conducted for no medical reason. In 2003, the United Nations instituted a national day called Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, promoting abandoning FGM and emphasizing societal dialogue and the empowerment of communities to act collectively to end the practice.